I created my own backyard garden during the first wave of COVID in 2020 in mid-March. And I was always thinking of it as my own victory garden. I couldn't help thinking of the victory gardens in England, that even the Hyde Park was plowed and the city dwellers could use it as their own allotment to produce food during the Second World War. And that was a similar situation, for me at least, when the pandemic hit Hungary. We had been reading the news about Italy and Spain and the spread of this deadly disease, this pandemic. But it reached Hungary only at the beginning of March. On the 14th of March in the evening, I think that was a Friday, our Prime Minister announced that Hungary closes in, we switch to online learning. Everybody should stay at home, home office heaven. And that was the time, that was the last straw, that was the motivation for me to pluck up enough courage to deem some part of our shared backyard mine and build some vegetable beds. I didn't know, nobody knew when it would end. And since I read a lot about how badly Italy and Spain had been affected by the pandemic, I was seriously concerned about the fruit and vegetable supply of that year later during fall, because I know that 80% of all the vegetables and fruits which are consumed in Europe are produced in the Italian and especially Spanish greenhouses. And I didn't know if we would have cheap or we would have veggies at all during fall or winter times. You know, we are quite get accustomed to having all kinds of fruits and vegetables throughout the whole year, owing to those greenhouses. But I was really concerned. So ancient motherly instinct developed up in me, and I knew that I had to feed my children. I have 3 of them. So on the following day, we started this little garden project. As you can see, the scene is not very nice. We had been just over a serious operation in our yard. The complete sewage and water pipe system had to be replaced due to a underground water pipe burst or whatever, and you can still see the remnants of those operations. So this is not a beautiful backyard. So it's a fairly good example to show that you can start your vegetable garden wherever you want. I had only this little side bed. It's just 1 square meter, 9 square feet, and a longer one along the fence. I had conflicts about even these with one of the neighbors. So when I said I had to pluck up courage to do vegetable gardens, I meant it. I really try to avoid conflicts if I can. But somehow this pandemic pushed me out of my comfort zone. So I put down my feet and started. While my husband was putting together makeshift vegetable beds, a very generous friend of mine allowed me to bring soil from his garden in pots and paint buckets. So it was really, it wasn't really planned. It was a sudden decision. I call your attention to this empty spot. Here, there is nothing here. On the following day, this was a Saturday. On Sunday, I went to a friend of mine who generously offered some raspberry plants, raspberry shoots that she wanted to discard because she had too many. That's a problem I would like to have. I have too many raspberries. So I went to her and I dug up some shoots and I planted them along the fence. So during the winter, during the summer months, we had plenty of raspberries. So this is how it looked like a week after. As you can see, I covered the soil with some cloth, and much as I wanted to start putting the seeds into the soil right away, I'm such an avid gardener, but I had to postpone it for a week. I had 3 reasons for that. First, I didn't have enough seeds to sow because not having a proper garden, I didn't plan beds, and I didn't buy seeds, so I had to buy them. The second reason, this was the first wave of the pandemic, and we had to switch to online school. I have 3 kids. I'm a teacher, so it wasn't an easy job. Let's put it mildly. It wasn't an easy job to provide 5 computers. I don't even want to remember back that week. It took us a whole week to get into some kind of rhythm or find the gadgets. And so I knew that there will be a time when I go out and start, but not that weekend. I cover the soil so it doesn't dry out so quickly. And the third reason is that it was mid-March and I needed mulch to cover the soil before I sow the seeds. But about that a little bit later. In May, my husband had to replace all the roof battens which were holding the tiles because they were rotten and old and broken, and that's why I could make a good aerial picture, a bird's eye view about the garden from the roof. So originally I asked my husband to do 2 vegetable beds, but later I decided that if I do something, I should do it well, and if the neighbors are just annoyed by my 2 vegetable beds, 3 vegetable beds will not make that much difference for them, but it would make a huge for me. So we made a new vegetable bed, and here you can see a little potato patch. This is a picture about the sizes. It's about 40 square meter, 400-ish square feet. Not huge, but just enough to make wonders. I originally had this side veg bed and this longer one. So these were the new ones. Here is the raspberry place, and this is for the potato. About the microclimate, here you can see a very tall building, and here you can see the other. Our backyard is surrounded by 2 very tall buildings, which seriously affect the microclimate. The wind cannot blow yeah, the wind cannot blow through the garden, so the air is a little bit more humid than I would like. So I have very early, I have mildew problems. On the bright side, 1 or 2 degrees Celsius is what I win, because the during winter, yeah, during, you know what I mean. So it looks like that. So as for the March, I had to wait for this treasure box, not box, bag. I always try to find bags full of cut grass on the street, and I admit I steal them, and I use it for mulching. I never, ever, ever want to leave soil uncovered, because it dries out really quickly. That's why I covered them originally with this. And the sun can warm up the top surface very quickly, and it can harm the microbiology. So as soon as I saw something, I immediately covered that part. Not the whole one, because I didn't have enough mulch at that point. Here you can see garlic that I had to plant apart. I had this, yes, this little couple of bunches of garlic that I forgot to pull out the previous autumn. They were left there, and spring came, and each little bud began to sprout. So I took the bunch out, and I replant them one by one. Mulch. Cut grass is perfect, and this is when the third vegetable garden was being made. And yes, so I planted courgette, zucchini in the middle, 1 meter apart. Here you can see broccoli plants. Yes, these are gigantic kohlrabis. It is named giant kohlrabi. And radishes, kale, carrot that we will see. This is the fence, the vegetable bed along the fence. And as you can see, it is full of plants. I don't say full of weeds. They are considered to be weeds, but I deliberately let it go, let it grow so thick, full of weeds and plants, because especially with the new vegetable gardens, when I brought the soil in buckets, the soil structure was destroyed, and I had to start building it again in the new place. How do you build soil structure? You plant, you sow, you let plants grow, and even weeds, because they send down their roots. And when I cut off the weed at the soil, so I don't rip off the weed, but I cut it right above their roots. The roots dies back. It enriches the soil. That's the first thing. It leaves perpendicular tubes in the soil, which helps air go down, helps the moisture go deeper. And when a new plant is growing, their roots can dig through these holes more easily, because they don't have to break the soil, and their root can go deeper using these old pipes, tubes that the previous roots, which died back, had created earlier. So it's a win-win. So I don't, I decimate. You know, a decimate can have double meaning. It means a huge massacre, killing killing a lot of people, but it can mean to kill every tenth of something. And when I decimate weeds, I use it in the second sense, second meaning of the word, that I kill only every tenth, only tenth of the weeds, so that they can still send nutrients down to the roots. And if the competition for air, for the water and the sun is huge, that's when I decimate and kill majority of the weeds. Okay, before I sow the courgettes and melons and the beans, the peas, peppers, tomatoes, I always bathe them. I soak the seeds in milk. I soak the courgette and melon seeds in milk, and I use a special tea for the rest of the seeds. This tea is made from nettles, catnip, chamomile, yarrow, and dandelion. So I pour water, hot water on them. I let it brew a little bit, and then when it gets cooler, I just soak the seeds for a couple of hours. It allows the seeds to wake up, and it is set to create a kind of protective layer around them. So why not? And here you can see a before and after picture of the little side bed. It's full of promises for the future. This is broad bean. These are the broccoli little seedlings that I was going to plant apart. This is elephant garlic. I love it. Tomatoes, which just came up spontaneously because there used to be tomatoes last year. And here is a huge Swiss chard, which I let grow into seeds. It was higher than me. And I just let the seeds spread all over the backyard, and now they grow like weeds. So that's a kind of problem I like to have. I have too many Swiss chard in my garden. In the other, this is along the fence, you can see peas and broad beans. This is goose foot, which is a very good salad crop. Spinach, alpine strawberry, more garlic. It's so good that from the beginning of May or even from April, there is always some green stuff to eat, which is great. This is the first vegetable garden that I created. Strawberries, this is tiny little kale plants, kale seedlings. They grew so big that they reached my hip, and they fed me throughout the winter. This is radish, and the garlic plant that I had planted apart. Salsify. This is salsify. Okay, and just you can see this was mid-May and early June, and you can see how much the plants grew. Here is the curly kale. Can you? Yes, tiny little sweet curly kale, and yeah, so big. And of course tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, which grow like weed. This is radish, if I remember well, these are radishes that I let grow into seed because I wanted to collect them. Yes, overview, those very, very tiny little zucchini courgette plant seedlings I showed grew quite a bit. And these are the broccoli plants, which were very, very, can you see, tiny little broccoli plants, even smaller courgette plants. And now they are quite huge. Actually, they were planted a little bit close, so powdery mildew was an issue. So I had to seriously decimate the leaves, the sick leaves. Amazing how nature can triumph. 2 months, just 2 months after that aerial picture, that bird's view, eye view picture of my garden, everything is covered with life and plants. It's amazing, truly amazing. And this is the same in August. The plants are very, very, very thirsty. Due to the underground operations in the yard, I got a garden hose at long last, because in the previous years when I needed water, I had to fill up my water can in the bathroom in my house. Then I go out, dripping water all through the living room. And to do any serious watering, you needed at least 20 cans. So I had a water tank, a water barrel, but of course there wasn't enough water. So this is an August picture. And now my pride, the fruits and vegetables, sugar snap pea. This is this patty pan squash, tomatoes in all quantities, broccoli, and the first radishes of the year. As for broccoli, I always wait for the head to grow and then cut it off, which forces the broccoli to produce tiny little side shoots that I am happy to devour. And the more I pick, the more side shoots appear. So that's so great. And I could even feed some snails as well, as you can judge it from the leaves. Tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. You cannot grow enough of them, and you cannot grow enough types of them. If I remember well, in my prime year, not here in this back garden, but I had the chance or the opportunity to garden somewhere else. And a couple of years ago, I grew 60 types of tomatoes a year. That was my most productive year ever. And Brussels sprouts, and just the feeling when you go out on Christmas Eve to harvest your own Brussels sprouts for the Christmas dinner is a feeling that I had been looking forward to for years. More tomatoes to can. If you remember, I told you that there was a very giant kohlrabi. This is the 2/3 of it, which is bigger than my daughter's head. Amazing. I read somewhere that if I don't harvest the whole kohlrabi, and I leave 1/3 of it on its trunk, then it will grow little, very fresh, small kohlrabi balls on it. So I tried, but I don't know, maybe I didn't do it well, but the stem was simply rotting away instead of producing more. Maybe I will try next year. As you can see, cross-pollination happened with my patty pan squashes. It's not a huge garden, so I couldn't make the plant the courgettes at a certain great distance to prevent cross-pollination. This bean, I like it very much. This is a very special bean, which is called the trail of the Cherokee Trail of Tears bean or something like that. This variety is said to have belonged to the Cherokee Indians who were chased away from their territories. And this is precisely the type of bean seed that they took with them to produce in their new land. And it's so, I have never seen such a prolific bean before. This is one bean plant, one. So it's a 1,000-fold, no, 100-fold crop came from simply one bean. Amazing. So that's corn, of course. And you know, green leaves are the most nutrient-rich food on earth. So going out and just handpick many types of green for your daily salad is something that everyone should do. If you remember well, I showed you some flowers, and I referred to them as radish plants. I had a very old bag of colored radishes back then, and I sowed them, and I knew that I cannot buy these varieties in Hungary, so I picked the radishes and I carefully chosen the most beautiful roundish ones, and I replanted them and I let them grow into seeds, and you can see the seed pods of the radishes on the right hand side, and you can see the seeds that I saved. So it's so good feeling that you are not dependent on the industrialized seed companies. So because you can save money, and this variety which I grew in my garden got the DNA, got the information in its DNA, what the circumstances in my garden is, if you know what I mean. So I didn't water my plants to death, so they had to be very resistant to drought, and my plants had to send down their roots deeply to get water because I wasn't spoiling them with water. So my radishes, you know, I think my radishes would need less watering the following year, the seeds, and the radishes which I grow from these seeds than from those that I can buy in seed stores, because my radishes got used to not having abundant amount of water. Okay, I told you that there is a very small potato patch, and I bought official sowing potato seed potato, and I had some which I bought earlier at the organic market, and some that my friend gave to me from his garden, and I planted them. And you can see, and you can judge yourself which are those plants which were grown from organic potatoes, and which are those which were from commercially produced seed potatoes, which need the fertilizers and chemicals and pesticides to survive, which I, of course, didn't provide them with. So that's a very obvious evidence for me that you cannot compare plants from grown from organic seeds and from commercially grown seeds. Okay. Oh, my new hobby, aphids. There were tons of aphids in my garden, and the natural enemy of them are ladybugs. So I collected the larvae of ladybugs from the street. There were some plants who got aphid infection earlier than me in my little garden. So the ladybugs planted their babies there earlier, and I could collect those, and I strategically put them on the aphid infested broad beans, and they did an amazing job. I like before and after pictures. This is tomato plants before trimming, and this is after. It shows just one bucket, but 3 buckets full of tomato plant leaves. 3 buckets were filled. Usually, I could soak these tomato plants in water, let them rot for 1 or 2 weeks, and it would be a great liquid feed for the tomatoes. But I just simply use them as a mulch. You can see the strawberries that I told you that I got as a present, and I planted some potatoes here as well. This is a beautiful courgette, Swiss chard. Abundance. Some more pictures about the potatoes that rules the world. And my beautiful daughter, who is trimming the little branches of this flower stake. I don't know what canne. I don't know precisely what kind of flower is that, but maybe you know. But the flower stake became so hard by the end of its prime that I can use it for staking tomatoes. And since I grow a lot of them, I need a lot of such stakes. And now this is we are getting to the end of the year, end of the presentation. As I told you, the powdery mildew attacks quite early. As you can see, this is I think it's a courgette plant, and almost 80% of the leaves are lost to powdery mildew. But the end is the fresh leaves. For a couple of days they are mildew free, and this is where the roots of the plant can be found, and zucchini is just crawling and producing even to the last minute. And this lot of green things you can see, these are all the kales, the curly kales and seaweed kales that I planted, which gave me enough green throughout the whole winter. Yes, tomatoes and this jungle of kales. I was amazed. You can see the powdery mildew. I just cut off the leaves, but it just kept on growing, producing tiny little paddy pan squashes. I love them. I made a mistake at that time. I checked the weather forecast, and it reported that there would be, frost is coming soon, and 14th of October was a school break. So I was thinking of, okay, now I have time. I won't have time the following week, so I have time now. I will cut off the tomato plants, harvest the tomatoes, and I will make chutney from the greens one and just eat the rest. And the weather forecast was wrong, first time in history, I guess. And we had sunny weeks, 3 or 4 more sunny weeks, and the frost came only 2 months later. So next year I will definitely wait for the frost to kill the plants before I kill them. And you can see health in this picture. Broccoli, kale. This is the seaweed kale, curly kale, and this is the Tuscan Cavolo Nero or something like that. Winter, no snow, of course. But these kales kept feeding me throughout the whole winter. So I always harvested the leaves on the bottom, so I was eating my way up. And here you can see this purple thing is a purple Brussels sprout. I definitely left it there, and I let it grow into seeds because I needed the seeds because I didn't have any of them left. So basically, that's how this was my victory garden of 2020, the first year of pandemic situation, and this garden gave me so much joy. I cannot tell you. I spent literally my whole days in front of the computer, and it was late afternoon when I could put down the mouse, turn off the screen, and I ran out of the garden to put my hands into the soil to feel that I'm alive. And later I went back to the papers, but every day it kept me sane, it kept me going, and it kept me fed. And I will keep doing it. And I hope the pandemic will be over very soon. Thank you for your attention.